Okay, so I did the NESARA video the other day where I basically just walked you guys through Tommy G's thread. I decided to do a little bit more research and dig down into it a little bit more, just kind of wanting to see if certain parts of it are possible. So one of the boxes to check to activate NESARA is the abolishment of all income taxes. So something that people always say is taxation is theft. Okay, well let's look at it. Let's really look into it. Is it theft? So basically the question I wanted to answer through this research was, can Trump abolish income taxes to activate NESARA? All right, so we think of income taxes, the first thing we think of is the 16th Amendment. Okay, so what does the 16th Amendment say? The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment among the several states and without regard to any census or enumeration. Okay, that's the amendment to the Constitution. So let's break that down a little bit. 16th Amendment, basically what I just read to you right here on the left. And on the right is the Constitution. Okay, this is Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, the body of it. And it says, representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within this union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of the free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons. It kind of contradicts it. It's like a paradox. It says the complete opposite of what the body of the Constitution says. Okay? Our founding fathers thought it to be so important that they put it in here twice. All right? So if you look at Article 1, Section 9, it says almost the same thing. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless proportioned to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. Okay? So proportion, apportioned, and here's the 16th Amendment basically saying the complete opposite. All right, if we look at Article 1, Section 8, this is the power that Congress had before the 16th Amendment. And it says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense. Ooh, look at that. Defense is spelled wrong. Hold on. Can't do that. All right. Provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Basically, what that says is the government has the power to tax. It already had the power. The 16th Amendment didn't give it its power. It already had the power, but it is basically using those words of uniform, proportionate, fair, right? Okay. So the old powers of taxation, which is basically what I just read you right here, Article 1, Section 8, breaking it down, old powers of taxation, it basically says the power to lay direct taxes subject to the rule of apportionment, the power to lay an indirect tax subject to the rule of uniformity. Okay? In order for the 16th Amendment to give it any more power, it had to say, right here on the right, a new power of taxation. The power to lay a direct tax not subject to the rule of apportionment. That is the only area where it gives it new power. Okay? Other than that, the only thing it did was just change the rule a little bit of income tax. It didn't give the government any new powers to tax people. So if you weren't taxable before the 16th Amendment, you're not taxable after it. Is basically what that's saying. Let's keep moving. So here, Pollock versus Farmers Loan and Trust Company. Okay, this is a court case from 1895, and I'm just going to read it to you. Basically, the only thing Pollock did was take a tax on income derived from property owned by a corporation and classify it as a direct tax. That's it. That's all he did. I'm going to tell you in a minute why this particular court case is important, okay? So once so classified, it was obvious that the tax was not laid by the rule of apportionment. Pollock then says that a tax on property must be laid by the rule of apportionment. Pollock rules the tax unconstitutional since it was a direct tax that was not laid by the rule of apportionment. Okay? If you want to read more on that, I have the site where I got this information. So basically, the sole purpose of the 16th Amendment was based on this case right here. Okay? This case happened in 1895. So the sole purpose of the 16th Amendment, the 16th Amendment was to keep any court from doing what the Pollock court did. The purpose of the 16th Amendment was to keep any court from reclassifying an income tax as direct when it is not direct. The proof of this is found in yet another Supreme Court case, Stanton versus Baltic Mining Company, 240 U.S. 103 in 1916. Okay, so let's read what that was about and how that proves it. It says, but aside from the obvious error of the proposition, intrinsically considered, it manifestly disregards the fact that by the previous ruling it was settled that the provisions of the 16th Amendment conferred no new power of taxation, but simply prohibited the previous complete and plenary power of income taxation possessed by Congress from the beginning, from being taken out of the category of indirect taxation to which it inherently belonged, and being placed in the category of direct taxation, subject to apportionment by a consideration of the sources from which the income was derived. That is, by testing the tax not by what it was, a tax on income, but by a mistaken theory deduced from the origin or source of the income taxed. That was the sole purpose of the 16th Amendment, was for the rulings of the Supreme Court. Okay, again, it gave no new power. Something else I want to show you. So if you actually go look at the tax code, and you can go, I showed you exactly where it is, 26 CFR Chapter 1, 4-1-03. It says that income taxes are voluntary compliance. Definition of voluntary: done, given, or acting of one's own free will. All right, so Dwight E. Avis, he was the head of the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax Division of the Bureau of Internal Revenue. State, okay, I'm quoting him, your income tax is 100% voluntary tax, and your liquor tax is 100% enforced tax. The situation is as different as night and day. Okay, so in the tax code, it says income tax is voluntary and liquor tax is enforced. Why is that important? Right here. Sheldon Cohen, former commissioner and author of the tax code. So he was interviewed. There's a video out there. You can find it. You might be able to Google that and then find it. I'm not sure how I found it and then I lost it. But he's on there and he's being interviewed and they're asking him about this voluntary compliance. And he says voluntary compliance is a euphemism to mean mandatory. A euphemism? He tried to compare it to the rules of driving. And he tried to say that voluntary compliance was the same as voluntary compliance for stopping at a stoplight. That it's voluntary, but you still do it. Technically, no. The rules of driving do not say it. Stopping at a stoplight is mandatory compliance. That's why you get a ticket if you run a red light. It's enforceable law. Remember that. All right. So what's the definition of a euphemism? Let's talk about that. Definition of a euphemism: a mild or indirect word or expression substituted for one considered to be too harsh or blunt when referring to something unpleasant or embarrassing. So you mean to tell me that voluntary is a euphemism for mandatory? How many people went to college? Like, high school. No. Probably 6th grade English. Voluntary and mandatory are opposites. They're not euphemisms of each other. And why would you say voluntary compliance for income taxes and say mandatory for liquor tax. Come on, guys. Let's use our brains here. What the hell? Okay, did you know that if the IRS comes after you, that they will not fight you in the Supreme Court? Only in the lower courts. And the lower courts will sometimes not let you use Supreme Court findings for your case. Okay? The Supreme Court has to abide by constitutional law, whereas lower courts do not. Now, I'm not sure about that. I didn't look into that, so that's a question mark. Okay, I do know the Supreme Court has the ability to interpret the Constitution the way they see fit, but local courts, somebody tell me that. Somebody look that up for me and tell me. Because that's BS. That's what that is. Let's look at another point of it. So filing a 1040. Okay, so income law code says states, individuals must fill out a 1040, and you can go to jail for it. And basically what they mean by that is you have to fill it out. It is mandatory to fill it out. Oh, there's that mandatory word. They didn't use it for the income part. So it's mandatory to fill it out. And you can go to jail for what you write on it. That violates the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment says no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. In other words, the Fifth Amendment says I have the right to remain silent. Anything I say can and will be held against me in a court of law. Yet IRS is mandating I fill out a 1040 and give them all of my private information on my income and where I bank and my social security number and my employer. So the IRS thinks it's above the law. Of course it does. Who does the IRS work for? The Federal Reserve. Who owns the Federal Reserve? Not the United States of America. No. In fact, that's actually what I was researching when I came across this. I was trying to connect that for you guys, was the Federal Reserve. The IRS is the army for the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is privately owned, and it's privately owned by private banks and anybody who's invested in it, stockholders, okay? Privately owned. I'm not giving my money to somebody that privately owns something? No. Okay. Something else I came across. Income is not defined in the tax code. Nowhere. Nowhere does it tell anybody what the definition of income is. All right. If the word income is not defined in the tax code, how can Americans know what is to be taxed? Constitutional law expert. Okay, I don't know what his name was because I was listening to it and I couldn't make out what they said. Edward Riviera, something like that. I didn't want to get it wrong and write it wrong. But he stated that the definition of income in the Constitution is not wages or labor, but gained through corporate activity. That means if you own a business and you make profit off of it, that's an income tax. If you have stocks and bonds in a corporation and you're profiting off of it, that's an income tax. If you're going out here and you're working at Walmart for $20 an hour and you are equally trading your labor for money, that is not income tax. Okay? So Supreme Courts have ruled stating that your labor is your private property. Supreme Courts also state that the 16th Amendment did not extend or give new taxing powers. My question is, shouldn't tax law abide by the previous Supreme Court rulings? I guess they just think they're above the law. This is just a list of some Supreme Court cases, adding to the ones that were already in here. I was going to list all of them, and I was like, it's a lot. All right. So the next one, the Internal Revenue Code is authorized by the 16th Amendment. That's what Sheldon Cohen said. Remember, he was the previous tax commissioner and author of the tax code. He specifically, out of his own mouth, said the Internal Revenue Code is authorized by the 16th Amendment. The Supreme Court said that the 16th Amendment did not give the government any new taxing power. So doesn't the IRS code have to be compliant with the Supreme Court? Shouldn't it be? My conclusion is the United States Constitution strictly forbids direct unapportioned tax on the wage and salaries of American citizens, and the Supreme Court has consistently ruled that income tax is that of profits and gains and not of labor and wages. And then the last thing, this right here, you guys need to go look at yourself because it's a lot, and I'm not reading it again. I've read it 4 times. Okay, so this is based on Brushaber versus the Union Pacific Railway. All right, this was, I believe, in, it says it on here, 1916. Okay, this right here. If we click on it, if we click on this link right here, it's going to take you to this. This is, not sure who made it, just happened to find it through Google, but it looks as if it's a letter to the IRS. And it looks as if you can add your name and address, and you can actually put the IRS address on here, and who in the IRS you are sending it to. And you need to get on here and read this. It's long, but it's so good. Okay, get in here and read this. And at the very bottom, it even gives you a place. Where is it? See, it's long. Right here, you can sign it, your first and last name. It also includes this right here, which was the findings of the Brushaber versus Union Pacific Railway Company, 1916, as kind of backup proof. But what this is stating, if you look at it, is this person is basically saying, based on all of these facts, all of these findings, all of these Supreme Court rulings, income tax based on labor and wages is not only unconstitutional, but illegal. Okay, so like I said, you can get on here and read this for yourself. I'm not going to do it. I think there's a piece in here that even talks about how, I think it's right here, the income tax law under consideration is marked by discriminating features. So not only that, but the tax code is discriminating. You can't discriminate, okay? It's a bunch. It's a bunch. It talks about the indirect and the direct, how it contradicts itself. It's so much in here. Just get in here and read this. And look, there's the Pollock ones right here too. So there's a lot in here. And I think like the last part even says, oh, it even talks about how technically, if you were in this country illegally, you owe taxes, not the people that are here legally. So if you're an immigrant and you're here legally, you shouldn't have to pay taxes. But if you're an immigrant and you came here illegally, you should be paying taxes. Doesn't that seem like it's flopped right now? That's what doesn't seem right. That's why everyone's like, how can you come to this country and get so much for free, and the ones that were born here don't get anything? So yeah, just go on here, read this. I'll pull up the link again. You can pause the video. There it is right there. It's very easy to type in. Go in there and read that. It's awesome. But ultimately, based on what I found, to answer my own question was, can Trump abolish income taxes to enact NESARA? Yeah, he can. He very well can. That's my conclusion of it. If you found something different, or you think any of this is wrong or not complete, please say something, comment. Do the research yourself. Tell me if I missed anything. I'm not here to be right. I'm here for the truth, and that's what everybody should be here for.